Is there more crime or less crime in your area than a year before? Well, here's our October update on the answer to that question on the part of the American public. 51% say there is more crime. That may seem alarming, but when you look back in history, we find that's not all that unusual to find over half of Americans saying there's more crime in their area. We had the same number back in 06 and 07, and at points in time, actually a slightly higher percent. The number does jump around some. The low point was in October of 2001, just after the 9/11 attacks, when, for whatever reason, just about a quarter of Americans said there was more crime in their area than the year before. But it wasn't just 9/11 in the year before that. 2000, for example, and before, we found lower percents of Americans who said there was more crime in their area. So there is some movement, but the current reading is not out of whack with what we found previously. We do ask a separate question: is there more crime in the U.S. than there was a year ago or not? And this is higher. Routinely, Americans are more negative, as we know, about things out there across the country than in their local area. Right now, 74% of Americans say there is more crime in the U.S. than a year ago, and that is actually up. That's as high, at least by a few points, as we've seen that going back all the way to the early 90s and to the late 80s. So we have seen an increase in the perception of crime across the U.S. Why, we're not sure. A year or two ago it was at 71%, so this 74% is not huge. But we do have somewhat of an uptick now in Americans' view that crime may be on the increase across the United States, at least based on this measure in our October survey. I'm Gallup's editor-in-chief, Dr. Frank Newport.